Hello everybody, my name is Eric Ross, and in this video we're going to be talking about the jQuery plugins Cycle2 and Lightbox2. These are two plugins that allow you to add a slideshow to your site and also a photo gallery. So let's take a look at what they look like. So here's a very simple page that I created. On the top is a slideshow that has my large images, and this is done with the Cycle2 plugin. And then on the bottom I have like a little photo gallery of thumbnail images. I only have 3, but when I click each image it opens up a nice little overlay on my page showing the large image, and then it also has a caption and some buttons where you can navigate between the different images. So I have 3, so I can go back and forward between those 3 pictures. And then when I'm done I can hit the close button and the overlay goes away and my page comes back up. One other note on this slideshow, it is responsive, so I have it set up to change sizes based on my browser window. So you can see if I make my browser smaller, the slideshow becomes smaller, but it still is very usable. So this is a nice technique if you're building a responsive website, you want it to look nice on even on a mobile phone. You can see that it does that. So let's look at how we can go about creating this. I am using jQuery, so both the Cycle2 and the Lightbox2 plugins are built off of jQuery. So let's first look at my HTML page that I've set up. This is a very basic page. You can see that I have a style sheet that I've added to it, and that's in my CSS folder, and it's called styles.css. So if I look at my folder over here on the right hand side, I've put all of my files, including the index page, in a folder called plugins. This is just the folder that I use to create this with. Obviously if you have your own site, you might put this file directly in your site root, but if you do, we do need to be aware of where your folders are located at. So like where you're putting your CSS files and where you're putting your images will matter. But you can see I have an index file, and then inside this same plugins folder I have a CSS folder and an images folder. Inside the CSS folder I have a file called styles.css, which I mentioned I have added to my page. In that styles.css, very basic, I have a container div which has a width of 80% and a margin of 0 auto, so that means my container will be centered in the browser window and it will take up 80% of the width. And then I also have a thumbnail, a couple little thumbnail CSS. If we look at my HTML, I have a div called thumbnails, and so the CSS here is just adding some padding to the top to give it some space between the end of the slide, the bottom of the slideshow and the top of the thumbnails. And then I'm also putting a 5-pixel border around the thumbnail images, a little blue border. So if I look at this in the design view, you can see it doesn't show up as a slideshow. I haven't set up the slideshow yet. I just have my 3 big images. And then on the bottom, here's my thumbnails. You can see the little blue border that I've set up through CSS, and then the padding I put to give it a little space. Code view, I've added my jQuery script tag, so I'm not really using jQuery at this point yet, but I've gone ahead and added it because I know I will need it. And then as I was saying, here's my HTML. I have a container div, and inside of that I have another div which is going to hold my slideshow. So if you're setting this up, you'll want to create a div tag and then add your images to it. So I've added 3 images here. And you can see I've put these in the images folder, which the source is showing me as images / and then the name of the image. So if I go into my images folder here, you can see I have all my images and their thumbnails. So you would set up your div tag and just put your whatever images you want to show up in that slideshow here. You can have as many as you want. I'm using 3. And then for the thumbnails, this is actually going to be my photo gallery. So what you need to do here is add a link tag, an A tag, that points to the large version of your file. You can give it a title, which will end up being the caption. And then inside that A tag, you put your thumbnail image. So you can see here I've created my thumbnail images, and I'm linking to them here. So the user is actually going to click this image to open up the link, which is the larger image. We'll go over this in a second though. First let's just start with the Cycle plugin. So as I said, you go ahead and create a div tag, and then you put your images inside that div tag. Now the next step really probably the first step would be to download Cycle and set it up in your page. So to do that, you can just go to the Cycle website, which is Cycle2. So if you this is the link, but if you don't know the link, you can just use Google, type in Cycle2. It's the first result. And you can see that there's an overview page and tells you a little bit about how it works. There's some demos, there's an API, there's an FAQ section, but what I want to go is to the download section. And so you have a couple of different options. You can either download the latest, I would recommend the production version. You can download that, take the files from the download, upload them to your server, or you can just link, kind of like you do with the jQuery script tag, you can link to it off of someone else's server. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and use the version that's hosted on GitHub. And so all I need to do is add a new script tag to my page. So I'm going to go up here. It has to be below my jQuery tag because Cycle requires jQuery in order to work. And then I've copied and pasted this, but you can see that I'm using the version that's hosted by GitHub, and it's just called jQuery.cycle2.js. So this means I don't have to download Cycle2, add it to my site, and then upload it. I can just use the one that's hosted on GitHub. Now let's just say I wanted to go ahead and use the version that you actually download from Cycle2 website. So I go to the latest release, click this production version, and you can see that that opens up a URL that's actually pointing to that same link that I just copied into my page. But I could now save this file. I'm using Chrome. There's a couple, each browser you can do it a different way. You can either go up to your file menu and hit Save Page As, or you can right click. So I'm going to go to Save Page As. Then I could save this to my website directory, which for me is somewhere down here, oops, wrong one. And I put this in my folder here, my plugins folder. And now we need to save this to my website root. So if it's a JavaScript file, I would most likely create a new folder called JS. Save that file to that folder. Then I would jump back to Dreamweaver, and you can see that that JS folder isn't showing yet. Oh, there it goes. It just refreshed. If it doesn't show right away, you can go up to your folder, right-click, refresh local files. And then now I have that jQuery cycle2.min file in my project folder. And now to add that script tag, I can just click and drag it over here, drop it, and Dreamweaver will automatically create the script tag. Now if you did it that method, you would not need to use this version up here, so you could delete that. You only need it once. You just have to remember that this file now has to be uploaded to your server before it can actually work. So I would need to come over here, upload, and I have my thing hidden, but you can see, let me do that again. So I just uploaded it really fast, which is perfectly fine. So I prefer to use the hosted version just because I don't have to worry about downloading it and making sure that the reference to it is correct, and then uploading it to my server. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this and go back to the hosted version. Okay, so now I've added the jQuery cycle script tag to my page, but if I was to upload this and test it on my site, I'm not going to see any change yet. So this is called index.html. So I've added the JavaScript file, the script tag to my page, but I'm not seeing the slideshow yet. That's because we need to tell the page what do you want to make into a slideshow. So to do that with Cycle2, it's really simple. All you have to do is go to your div tag that's holding your images, and you add a new class, and you give that class a name of cycle-slideshow. And that's it. There's no code necessary at all for this. You just have to add this class to your div tag. And if I upload that and test it, I'm going to go back here, I'm going to reload my page. I should now see a very basic slideshow. So let's see, there we go. By default, the Cycle2 plugin will use the fade in effect. So if you watch the transition between these images, you'll see that it has a little slight fade in, fade out. That option is, you can change that option if you want. You can also change the speed on how fast these images go. So right now, by default, I believe they're set to 2 seconds. If you want to change that, you can. Let's go over how to do that real quick. So all the options you just add as new attributes to the div tag. So I'm going to go ahead and after my class I'm going to add a space, and so if I want to, let's say, change the speed, I can do data-cycle-speed, and then you put a number. This is in milliseconds, so I'm going to do 100, so 100 milliseconds equals 1 second. So this should be relatively fast. So if I upload that and go check it out, and reload my page, so now the images should start changing every second. There we go. So that's the speed. If you want to make it slower, you can change this value to, let's say, 5 seconds, 500 milliseconds. I'm just going to go back and leave it at 200 for now. You can also change the effect that's being used. So by default, like I said, it does use the fade effect. If you want to figure out some of the other effects, you can go back to the Cycle website and you can check out their API. And the API is actually going to show you all the different options that Cycle has. So there are quite a few. So you can see all these things in this table here are the different options that Cycle2 provides, along with a description of what that attribute does. So for the effects, the attribute is called FX. And so here's the following transition names that are available. So you have fade, fade out, none, and scroll horiz, which is scroll horizontal. So if, let's say, I wanted to use the scroll horizontal transition instead of the fade transition, so I know that the option is called FX. So now I just go back here and I do another attribute called data.cycle.fx equals scroll HORZ. And you have to spell it exactly like it is on the website, so it's case sensitive. So if I go back and double check that, you can see that it's scroll HORZ with a capital H. So now if I upload this and preview my page, we should see a slightly different effect between the images. And you can see that, I don't know how well it shows up in the video, but the images are scrolling horizontally as they come in and out. So that's how you set up a very basic slideshow. Now, as I was showing in the demo, that I did have a responsive slideshow. Now, to get that to work right, you do have to modify some of your CSS. So what you need to do is go into your style sheet. So for me, it's my styles.css file. And I need to add 2 new styles here. Cycle-slideshow, and then you have to give it a width. So in this case, I'm saying 95%. I'll probably lower that to, like, let's say 75%. So this is how wide the slideshow is going to be when it shows up by default. So I'm setting it to 75% of the browser window. And then the other thing you want to do is set the images that are going to be within that cycle slideshow to width 100%. And you can play with this value, but you should leave this one always at 100%. So that means it's going to take up as much space as your slideshow is taking up. So this value you can mess with. You can change it to 50%, 100%, but this one you should always set as 100%. And so now that I have those changes in place, and if I go back and look at my slideshow, so I'm going to refresh this, you can see that when I'm loading the slideshow, it's taking up 75% of my container. So my container is actually 80%. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. My container is set to 80% width. And actually, to make this easier, I'll add a border. I'll upload that and we'll take a look at it. So this will make it a lot easier to see. So here's my container. It's centered within my browser window, and you can see my slideshow is at 75% of the container width. So if I adjust my browser window now and make it smaller, you can see that my slideshow is also adjusting. And let's just prove that by swapping this 75 to be, let's say 100%. Upload that, refresh. So now the slideshow should take up the entire width of the container, which it is. And if I make my site smaller, you can see that it does adjust, which is pretty cool. So that's it for the Cycle slideshow. If you want more information, there are a lot more options on using Cycle. Definitely check out the Cycle website, the API section in particular. And then there's also a good demo section here. So if you click on that, they have demos of several of the different options, and you can click on any of these to figure out how to add these options. So here's a nice one with a caption, so you can see that it's showing you what image you're currently viewing, which is kind of a nice thing to do. So definitely check these demos out and customize the slideshow to your liking. Alright, let's now move on to the Lightbox plugin. So for Lightbox, as I said, you would want to put, well, the first thing you'd want to do is actually create your thumbnail images. So you definitely want to use different images for your thumbnails than you are for your main images, your larger images. Some people take the large image and just do something like this, where they do, okay, here's my large image, and then I'm going to set the width to something small like 100 and the height equal to 100. This is really not a very good way of doing it. You should definitely go into Photoshop, create actual thumbnail images that are the size that you want to show them at, and then add those to your page. So like I said, you want to create a link tag that links to the large image. Give it a title. The titles will be the caption of the picture. And then you add an image tag inside that link that points to your thumbnail image. So I've done that 3 times here, and as we've seen before, here are my 3 thumbnail images. Now the next step I need to do is download Lightbox2 and add it to my site. Now Lightbox, if you want to find the Lightbox website, again, Lightbox2 in Google, it's the first result, Lightbox2. This is what the website looks like. Pretty simple site. It has just examples of using Lightbox. And you can get the link from GitHub if you want to add Lightbox to your site, but you will need to download Lightbox because there are a few different files that you need. So Lightbox, if I hit this download link, downloads a zip file. I can open up that zip file. And inside the zip file there's a CSS folder, an IMG folder, a JS folder, and then an index file which just has some demos on it. So you're actually going to need things from all 3 of these folders. So the CSS folder, there's 2 CSS files, so you need to take those 2 files. And I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to copy these, and then I need to add them to my website folder. So for me, that is way over here, blah, 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 plugins. So here's my local CSS folder. So I'm going to copy those files into that folder. So paste. So there's Lightbox and screen. I'm going to go back to that zip file. I'm going to go back a directory. Let's go to the JS folder next. Inside that, there's 3 files. You really only need this Lightbox 2.6 file, but I'm just going to copy the modernizer file as well. But I don't need jQuery because I've already added jQuery to my page using the Google CDN. So I'm going to go back. This is my local folder. I'm going to go back to my JS folder that I already created. I'm going to paste those files here. And then the last folder is this image folder, IMG. So when you're using Lightbox, it has a couple of images that it relies on. So if we look at Lightbox again here, oops, actually I'll just use the one on their website. So there's a couple different images. There's an image for this close button down here that you need to have, and then there's images for these arrows, And then there's also a loading graphic, which you can barely see. It shows up when a new image is loading here in the middle. It's an animated GIF right there. So those are images that you need to upload to your website in order for them to show up. So in this image folder, in the zip file, there's 4 images here. I need to copy these files. Now by default, Lightbox is expecting them to be in an IMG folder. Well, you can go ahead and create an IMG folder if you want. So you can just go here, new folder, IMG, paste those files. I'm going to go ahead and put them in my images folder because I put all my other images there. I don't really want to have 2 different folders of images. This will require an extra step, which I'll go over here in a second. So if you don't want to do this extra step, you can just put them in the IMG folder and be done with it. But I like to have all my images in the folder called images, so I'm going to copy them there. And then now what I need to do is go into the CSS file of Lightbox, which is not showing up, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh my local files. Here's that lightbox.css file. And so you can see that in the CSS file of Lightbox, it's going to look for the images in the IMG folder. So like I said, I put mine in the images folder, so I need to do a find and replace and find anything that says, and in Dreamweaver you can hit Control F to open up find and replace. So I have in my current document, I want to find IMG and replace it with images. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit replace all. So that's going to search through this CSS file, and anywhere that it found IMG is going to replace that with images. So that should fix my problem here. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this image folder so I don't get confused. I can close that file now. And now I'm going to go back to my index.html file. Now I need to add these Lightbox assets to my page. So I can start by adding the Lightbox CSS file. So I can just click and drag it and drop it over here. I'm going to put it before my style sheet, my custom one. And then I also need that Lightbox 2.6.min.js file, so I'm just going to drag that one over here as well. And again, if you use this method of dragging it, you should get a source very similar to this with a JS, the name of the folder, / the name of the file. So you'll just want to check these references and make sure that they're correct. And now I need to, like I did for the slideshow where I had to tell the page what div tag has my slideshow, I need to do something similar for Lightbox. I need to tell Lightbox what images I want the Lightbox effect to work with. And so to do that, I actually need to set a property of my link tag, my A tag here, that's data-lightbox, and then equals, and then you can give it a random name. So let me do this 2 different ways. I'll do it once where I have individual names, so unique names for each link. So photo 1, photo 2, and photo 3. And then I need to upload, let's go ahead and upload all these new files that I've added. So I have these CSS files I need to upload, these new images in my images folder, and then my Lightbox and Modernizer file. So I'm going to go ahead and upload these to my server, and I'm going to test out my page. So I got to scroll down now because I made my slideshow really big. Now if all goes well, and it didn't here, so I know I did something wrong. So this is actually probably a good thing, because let's show how we can debug this. So I know that it didn't work right because the Lightbox effects is not coming up when I click each thumbnail. So what I would do is open up my developer tools, which is F12, and then I would reload my page, and I would try to look for any errors that might show up here in the console. Now there's no errors showing up, so my code must be okay, but I must have done something wrong here. And let me see if I can figure out what I did wrong real quick. Alright, I figured out what I did wrong. I had spelled one of these data.lightbox values improperly. So I fixed that. So photo 1, photo 2, photo 3 now. And I already uploaded it and tested it, but just so I can show you guys, let me reload my page. And now I can click this image. You'll notice that I don't have the previous and next buttons, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but I can close each image. And so I can do the same for all 3 images, but again, there's no previous and next. And the reason why is because I gave these data.lightbox values, they're all unique. Now if you want to create a slideshow where you can go previous and next, you need to use the same name for these. So let's say instead of giving each one a unique title, we'll call them all photos with an S. And now if I upload that and I reload my page here and test it, we should get buttons now, navigation links. And again, here's my caption that's showing up down here, and also the name of the image and which image it is. So 3 of 3, image 2 of 3 with the cookies, and Sunset and Key West image 1 of 3. And again, these captions are controlled through the title value of your link. So that's how you can use both the Cycle2 and the Lightbox2 plugins. I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. All right, thanks.